Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And today I actually want to talk about the United States and the United Kingdom coming together to share information from various tech companies in a way that has never happened before. Now, I've got a lot of notes here, and I think this is absolutely fascinating. Basically, the US and the UK have signed a first of its kind agreement that will allow law enforcement agencies in each country to access data from tech companies in each other's countries more quickly. Now, basically, this pact will allow the UK authorities to go directly to companies like Facebook, Google, and Twitter, obviously, which are US based, for evidence in cases relating to terrorism, child abuse, sexual abuse, and other serious crimes. U.S. officials will also be able to receive access to British communication service providers very quickly. Now, the U.S. Justice Department said that this historic agreement will, and I quote, dramatically speed up investigations by removing legal barriers to timely and effective collection of electronic evidence. Now, currently, the way it works is that an authority from one country going into the other must go through various government agencies to access the evidence from these companies, which these officials are saying can take potentially years. Now, under this new agreement, the process will be reduced to a matter of weeks or days, and this is according to the UK's Home Office. So this agreement is going to go into force once it's basically approved by lawmakers in both the United States and the United Kingdom, and it was reached as part of a CLOUD, that's the CLOUD, or Clarifying Lawful Overseas Use of Data, because governments love acronyms. This is the CLOUD Act, which was enacted in 2018, that allows the United States to enter into bilateral agreements with other countries to access data stored overseas. Now, this agreement, however, and this is according to the article, will not prevent tech companies from encrypting their platforms. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in terms of, let's say, end-to-end encryption or encryption at rest, and how they're actually going to be able to safeguard this if they are simply decrypting it and then allowing law enforcement, not just from the United States, but let's say the UK and vice versa, when we're talking about the UK side, into this. And so I think there are a lot of practical benefits. If we are actively tracking terrorism or child abuse or something along those lines, that obviously makes perfect sense. But most of us, for the record, and overwhelmingly, are not child abusers, terrorists, or committing violent crimes. And by virtue of that, we are creating something that once again speaks to the lowest common denominator. Now, again, I understand the balance that has to be struck here. And if we do have these situations, there should be a mechanism, let's say, for British law enforcement to be able to go to a Facebook, let's say, that's being used illegally by a British citizen or a citizen of the UK to get information on that individual without having to jump through an absolute ton of hoops. But I would like to understand the legal mechanisms more, not to mention the ability to safeguard this data. With the UK actually leaving the European Union, and from what I understand, literally today as I'm recording this, a Brexit deal has been reached with the new Prime Minister and the European Union. Britain, or the UK, excuse me, won't have the GDPR data protection anymore, and even though they've got their own laws on the books, I'm curious to understand what that's going to do to UK citizens, and the United States needs something along these lines as well. We've got that spinning up in California, but this is the backdrop for what this is coming into. And while I think on the law enforcement side, obviously it's excellent. We have to have good mechanisms between this. The privacy wonk in me says, I don't necessarily need my data accessed by a foreign government, even though Britain is probably one of our closest, if not our closest ally here in the United States. We love the UK and the UK tends to love us. So that's a pretty good symbiotic relationship. Nevertheless, foreign country. So here we are. And take that for what it's worth, because if the United States or the UK are entering into bilateral agreements on stuff like this, I'm wondering what other countries could potentially be on that list to join intelligence sharing or direct access to these platforms that house data on citizens that do not belong to their country. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but this is the new world that we are living in. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.